This Late Night Linux Family podcast is made possible by our patrons. Go to latenightlinux.com/support for details of how you can join them. Support us on Patreon for access to ad-free episodes and early releases. That's latenightlinux.com/support.
Hybrid Cloud Show, episode 36. I'm Aaron.
I'm Gary.
I'm Sean.
And I'm Shane.
Welcome to the show about public cloud, private cloud, and everything in between. Our views here are ours and not those of our employers. So some time ago, Shane, you told us about your janky homelab, and I was wondering if you could give us an update on where it's gone since then.
I actually did listen back to that episode, mostly to enjoy my own hubris, maybe, and some of those terrific aims I had. I think to summarize, after listening to that episode, it would be Gary and Sean were right, basically.
Truly, I am shocked.
My ego needed that.
The original rules were I was going to spend no money. Remember, it was jank all the way. That fell apart quite quickly. I remember I was trying to I was going to cobble a bunch of stuff together, put all my critical data on there, and then lie awake at night worrying about it, and then spend money. And you, Gary, suggested at that point, maybe buy the hard drives first. Yeah, that was pretty dead on, actually. The second rule I had was everything's supposed to be in GitOps. And that one wasn't a complete disaster. I've actually kept everything in code and deploy everything declaratively through Git. And that has been really cool, actually.
Awesome.
Yeah. So as I say, rule one, massive failure. I ended up, I think in a previous episode, Aaron, you were ranting about buying hard drives. And I was feeling your pain because I ended up buying some hardware to basically handle storage. I have got from the recommendation from Joe on, I think it was Linux After Dark, I've got a HP 290 G2, which is like an i5 with 8 gigs of RAM and SSD of some sort in it. And I put two 12 terabyte Seagate Ironwolf drives in there. I also needed to buy a switch, so I got a Ubiquiti switch of some sort, like a 8-port thing that's got some PoE. So yes, I have had to spend a decent amount of money just for storage, basically.
And how many years of on time did your hard drives have before you got them?
First ones had about 4 years of usage, despite saying 0 on the on the smart data. Then I got rid of those and ended up plugging for brand new ones from eBuyer, which did work out fine. They were genuinely empty, which was reassuring.
We should acknowledge at this point that the hard drive market, particularly in the UK, is a complete crapshoot right now. You can buy drives that are badged as new and have had the smart data reset, and it's only when you look at one level deeper, particularly on the Seagate drives, the Seagate version of smart data, which is, my understanding, is much more difficult to wipe, that you find out that drives have got 4 or 5 hours of power on time. So I've also seen it where people have had that with new quote-unquote drives from reputable sellers. So I think you probably went down the right route with buying from eBuyer or somewhere like that, because I've also seen it with Amazon, which is not entirely shocking, but a bit of a nightmare to know what you're getting these days.
Hard drives have caught up with the used car market.
Basically, yes. I have zero faith in purchases from Amazon. eBuyer looked like the most legitimate because it wasn't like you're buying it from them, not from like weird sellers. I could not recommend buying hard drives from Amazon unless you're really sure it's coming from the right seller. But the surprising success was obviously GitOps. It worked super well. It's nice to have all my apps and config kind of up and running. Everything's in version control, so it's like genuinely quite powerful and quite nice.
Can you tell me a bit about that? Where's the Git repo? Where's it living?
The Git repo is in GitHub. So what I've got running on it, maybe I'll go through like some of the apps I've installed and how I've done it and what I've learned basically. So I've Cert Manager and Image and Jellyfin and a couple other things. And basically it's like a repo, Kubernetes repo. It's got a bunch of folders in it for each of those apps. And I'm using Kustomize to basically define effectively like I want this Helm chart. I want to configure this Helm chart in this way. It needs to have these persistent volumes. So this is how it connects to the NAS. If it needs a database, I'll have another file for like configuring the database. And essentially I've got like each folder represents an app and everything that app needs. And so I will push that up to GitHub. And then I have Flux on the control plane. essentially reconciling those changes. So it'll pull down all the stuff from GitHub and then apply all those files into Kubernetes, basically, which typically involves taking the Helm chart and then spinning up what the Helm chart's declaring.
And with your NAS, what did you put on there?
The NAS, it's just like bog standard Ubuntu with the two 12 terabyte drives are using ZFS mirroring. So my aim to hey, I'm going to learn Kubernetes. The first month was just learning ZFS and mirroring and data sets and all that stuff. So I really lost the plot quite quickly in terms of the original aims, but I'm kind of glad now I've done it.
I will plug Alan Jude's great book at that. I haven't read many books on file systems, I'll be honest, but as far as a book on file systems goes, that was an excellent book.
Yeah, I definitely know enough to be dangerous, and that's about it. I've set up all the data sets. Data sets, if you don't know what they are, they're a way of kind of splitting out the data a little bit, and then you can apply different rules to different data sets. So say, for example, you've got one where it's very static data. Maybe you could compress the data on that data set, or I don't know if you need fast read and write and access. I don't know very much about it, but that's kind of my understanding of data sets. So again, as I say, I know enough to do damage and get this up and running, but that's about it.
If you want to learn more about ZFS, I think there's some sort of podcast about that. I don't know.
There is.
do.5admins.com.
But yeah, so it took a while, I think, to get the first app up and running. The NAS was introducing some complexity, and this is probably where Sean was proved true, which was just use, and I didn't even think of this, but just use a folder on the actual operating system, mount that and do your stuff with that. Looking back, I probably would have gone with something very simple and iterated from there. What I decided to do was have a NAS and have certificates being vended and have all these PVCs and all this other distributed things that could break, essentially. And it meant I had quite a painful upfront time of just getting something working, basically. But once that was done, it became a little more rinse and repeat. Some of the things I use now for that are a bit more rinse and repeat are the persistent volumes are mounted using external subdir something or other, which is I can just basically copy paste that config between each of my applications. Cert Manager is actually really quite cool as well. I just have a file in each of my apps that says I need this DNS record and it's going to point to this service. And what it'll do is basically go to Cloudflare, make a request, and it will automatically vend that cert. So all I do is drop in a file, and then when I apply it in Flux, it vends the cert, sets up all the ingress, connects the ingress to the app. So it's it is all end-to-end set up and all the storage is at the back end. So it's all end-to-end working, which is quite cool.
I'm assuming you did DNS challenge for the Cert Manager. Is that correct?
I have no idea. What's DNS? Oh, yes, I did.
It's where you have the Cloudflare API key and it goes and creates a DNS record that is known to Cloudflare to prove ownership of the domain.
Yes. Yeah, that's it. That's what I've done.
Okay. So the question is, how did you store that secret? Because you have to put that in the YAML somehow.
So, Sean, this was going to be one of my questions at the end of the of the discussion. How you handle secrets? Because I not safely or securely. Let's put it that way. Actually, maybe this is a good segue for that. One of my questions was, right now I am applying secrets manually. So there's a little bit of not automation happening where I apply secrets on the cluster directly, essentially. I need a better solution for this. Something that's going to not be too frictionless, but obviously not as shameful as what I'm actually doing. So what do you folks use for secret management?
I want Gary to go first because mine's not good.
Good.
So I don't run Kubernetes at home because I'm not a maniac like you and Sean.
Guilty.
So my experience is very much limited to in the enterprise/business space, where I've used a mixture of Azure Vault, AWS Secrets Manager, and HashiCorp Vault to do this. And they're all very well known, very well documented ways to handle those secrets. But they might be a little bit overkill for your home lab, not that I have a better suggestion than one of those in my head right now.
Ah, dang it. I wish we had a better answer for you. I personally am doing SOPs. So I am keeping my secrets in there and they get decrypted on the machine that is applying the manifest. So that way I can still put it all in GitHub, or in my case, GitLab, and it's all nice and neat. And I don't have to worry about operating Vault or something like that. I have used Vault as well, but it was more overhead than it was worth. So I took out the Vault operator and said goodbye to that. I wish I had something better for you. There is something that's very popular that I've heard called External Secrets Operator. that you might want to look into, but I don't have more information on that. So you have to let us know.
All right.
But I think the thing here is that you're not handling hundreds or thousands of secrets, right? It's never going to be more than 20, say.
Yeah.
It depends on what your purpose for doing this is. If your purpose for doing this is, I want something that is a learning experience that's scalable, that I could take into work and replicate, maybe you do want to go and use the HashiCorp Vault operator. If it's just, I'm doing this to mess around in my home lab and I don't mind on the once every few months where I'm trying a cool new app and I want to create a secret, going and manually applying the secret, maybe that's not so much of an issue.
Probably isn't. And yeah, you're right to think, like, to ask what my aim is. Like, do I go overkill, basically, just because it's a learning experience, or do I go just what I've got currently? My motivation is shame-based, which is that it's kind of really janky to be just applying secrets. I don't know, if something makes me feel uncomfortable about it, I suppose, and it kind of breaks the automation a little, if you know what I mean. It's like, well, I can kubectl apply everything and it all works, except for I got to do this thing beforehand to set up secrets. So something that makes it more automatable, I guess, is probably what's in my mind. But I will look into some of those options and see. But Sean, if you're saying Vault is overkill, then I'm like, no hope.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like, Sean, you went down the Vault route because that was what you were using at work, maybe. You got comfortable with it, you got it working, and then went, this is a complete ball ache for the 20 secrets I've got.
You know, separation concerns. I couldn't find a good way to make it run like in Kubernetes. I didn't want to have to be part of the infrastructure that I was managing. So I created 2 VMs and had them in like an HA config. But then trying to keep them up to date and Ansible and all that stuff just wasn't worth it for me.
I was looking at this myself and looking at Vault and the requirements of it, and I briefly wondered if it's possible to use one of the cloud vaults and connect to it from your on-prem infrastructure and sort of outsource that bit. But I don't have a good sense of how much those cloud vault services cost. They didn't look very much when I was looking at them, but I've never used them at enough scale, actually hitting those endpoints and things, to know what the bill ends up at.
I think for home lab use, it's pretty reasonable. I've used Secrets Manager and Parameter Store, which I think is a slightly cheaper, similar alternative in AWS. And they were, like, with lots and lots of requests, they were still reasonably inexpensive. So you're right. It would probably be basically for free if I did it with Secrets Manager anyway.
Yeah, Secrets Manager is something like 40 cents a secret a month. So it can get quite costly if you've got a few of them, but other than that, like if you're calling the API to get the secret, I think it's like less than 10 cents to go and actually get the secret back. So yeah, the storage is a little bit costly, but again, if you're at home lab scale and you've got 20 of them, that's like, you know, very little in terms of cost realistically.
Yep.
So you were saying that you've upgraded your little janky thing to a real x86 kind of box with a couple of not IDE, that shows my age, a couple of SATA hard drives. And, have you got any NVMe on that, or is it just spinning Rust?
I have a 256 gig SSD just for the operating system, and I don't know, some scripts for managing ZFS and doing some regular jobs in it, but that's about it.
I assume you're accessing that all over 1 gig Ethernet anyway, Shane. So anything more than a couple of spinning disks doesn't matter in that case.
Yeah, exactly that.
Yeah, okay.
I was wondering about that because I was looking to respec mine, and I currently only have the operating system on NVMe. And when I was looking at image, it very strongly recommends that you put the cache or the whatever it is on NVMe to improve that kind of performance. But have you found that it's okay on spinning Rust?
Yeah, it's been fine actually. So I've got multiple data sets. So I've got like a photos data set for the actual raw photos, and then another data set for holding the Kubernetes specific data, you know, like the base data that the operating system needs to run and all. And it's been fine. Yeah, I've had no performance issues.
Yeah, mine's been running on spinning Rust over NFS for the longest time. And again, I've had no real performance issues. The VM that it's on is accessing files that are on the host over NFS. So yeah, it's the performance of the Linux bridge there that I'm really not being bottlenecked by. But it's spinning Rust. It's been okay.
Same. I have NFS that mounts into Kubernetes pods where image actually runs, but then the NAS is just spinning Rust. Nothing's crazy, even 1 gig. And I have seen terrific performance, especially with the new update.
So are you saying that you're accessing files on the same host via NFS?
It's a VM on the file server.
Right.
I have the file server with the workload sitting in VMs on the file server. Say there's then a Linux bridge that obviously those VMs connect to, and then they access the files on the file server via that.
Interesting. So I usually use LXD for my virtual machines. And so in that, there's a relatively simple command where you effectively share a folder from the host or a device from the host up into the virtual machine. And I don't actually know what it is when you share a folder. I thought it was a bind mount of some kind, but maybe I don't know if you can do that through a VM or not.
It's a bind mount in Docker world, so it wouldn't surprise me if it's very similar in LXD world. Mine is a full-fat KVM virtual machine.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking about the LXD virtual machines in this case, but it's interesting. I'll have to look into that and see if I can figure it out. So the Kubernetes that you're running, are you just running that straight on the operating system, or is that sitting inside a virtual machine?
No, it's straight on the operating system. I have basically a control plane and a node right now. I'll add more nodes later, but actually it's been performing pretty well. But yeah, I've got 2 boxes, I think, both running Ubuntu, and then I just install K3S on those. And so it's basically one K3S is a control plane, the other one is the node, and then you just run a command to connect the node to control plane.
Yeah, I like it. That's exactly what I did.
Yeah, and as I say, I would continue to recommend K3S. Again, as I say, it's quite a nice repeatable setup where I've got traffic as my English controller still. I've not got anything in front of that yet, so I haven't gotten to Metal LB yet. Cert Manager's handling the encryption, and so each app gets its own ingress route and TLS cert, and it just runs. Right now for DNS, I use a NextDNS with Tailscale, so I've got the equivalent of a distributed host file. There's a thing you can do in NextDNS that basically says, right now privately, point this domain name at this Tailscale IP, and so everything connects to that way.
Cool.
Some of the things that I've kind of learned off the back of this, though, is I had an idea that Helm charts were more mature than they are. So for anyone who doesn't know, like Helm charts, you nearly consider them like the Docker Compose of Kubernetes, in that they kind of try to abstract away running applications into like what they call a values file. So it's like, I want a Nextcloud, here's your values YAML, and you can populate what you want to get what you want out of that Nextcloud instance, for example. So I've been using those kind of like, someone else can manage all of this Nextcloud, upgrades and et cetera, best practices. I'll just use the Helm chart. I'll deploy Nextcloud, for example. The problem I've found is that there's not everyone produces a Helm chart. So sometimes like you're getting Helm charts from like randos on the internet. And like I've seen open source projects where I'll see an issue saying, can we have a Helm chart? And then the maintainers will be like, we don't have any Kubernetes expertise here, so we can't really help you. So yeah, there's a lot of Helm charts out there that just aren't really up to scratch and are kind of broken. I think the other thing as well that I learned was that Nextcloud in particular's Helm chart is a complete pain in the neck. Interestingly, on Reddit, I was looking around because I was like, I'm finding this so hard to configure and set up, particularly with the NAS, and permissions were just a constant headache. And I did manage to get it working. I ran one minor upgrade and everything broke again. I was like, I can't. I tried again recently and it still was a pain. And it seems like either you're in a camp of like, I have been using and running Nextcloud for like 50 years and I've never had an issue, or it's I can't breathe near this machine without it breaking again. So apparently in the latter, I've not had any luck with Nextcloud.
It took me months to figure out the Helm chart and to migrate it over from just like a deployment and service and ingress resources that I had. And I had to do that so I could get the HA. And then I had the additional complexity. It was that I wanted to split up my config folder from like my data folder. And there was no good way of doing that. So I had to do like a manual NFS PVC and then like override one of the volume mounts within the Helm charts, because they allow you to do that to get it to behave the way I wanted. But yeah, it's a right pain and needs better documentation.
Glad I'm not the only one. It's one of those ones where it's like, this should be easy. This looks like it's logical and makes sense, which just, I've had very little luck with it. The other cool thing I have discovered is it's really good for custom cron jobs, or I find it really nice running custom cron jobs. So I have a remarkable e-ink tablet, and I like getting like my news, and I get like my calendars, and I get like, basically I'll email myself PDFs and I'll get them onto my tablet. Amazon Kindle provide this out of box. Remarkable don't. So I have something where I send something to a particular email address with a PDF attached, and I have a cron in my Kubernetes watching that mailbox, pulling down the PDFs and then pushing them up using the Remarkable API. do that from myself on the cheap. And I've got a couple of cron jobs like that where it's just quite nice and standardized. It's like, okay, I got my crons, I run here. If I want to get the logs for any of the previous runs, it's all like quite well organized and nice, I guess.
I do sometimes wonder how normal people use technology.
No, this is perfectly normal, right? I think. Thanks, Aaron. The last cool thing I've found is Renovate. Again, for the self-hosters, it'll watch all your Helm charts. You got to configure it a bit, but it'll watch all your Helm charts. And if it finds updates to those Helm charts, it'll create pull requests and it'll create an issue for you in your GitHub. So you can just merge in all the updates, which is quite cool. Although I'm still kind of terrified of using it because it's like, there's no pre-prods. It's like, yeah, YOLO, let's merge and see how this goes. So yeah, that was my other question to the room is like, how do you like test this stuff if everything's prod, basically?
I mean, presumably Sean has a second set of Dell PowerEdge servers that he uses for his pre-prod and staging environments.
Excuse me, they're the same servers, different VMs, but yes. First of all, Renovate is a remarkable tool. I cannot recommend it enough. If I'm talking to another team, the first thing I'm asking them is, are you using Renovate? Because absolutely a fantastic tool for this exact use case. Not only does it look at Helm charts, but it looks at any kind of dependency, whether that's just a Docker container image, whether that's you're building your application and then containerizing it there. It'll monitor all your like, NPM node, or Java dependencies, whatever you need. So a very strong call there. And then I like what you did, because it's exactly what I did, where I combined Renovate, looking at my repo, with GitOps. So it creates an MR. I can look at it, and it'll also gather the release notes for that change if you give it like a GitHub token. And then you can look at it and say, okay, I'm going from a minor version to a minor version. I read the release notes right there in the MR or PR. I say, okay, that's good. Hit merge, and I'm done. I don't have to worry about it. It just deploys and I'm done. It's a really quick way for like at the end of the day, just be like, yep, and have my box updated forever. Very good pattern.
Okay, you've reviewed the changes. When you merge, is that going then to like your production, or is there like a merge to, I don't know, staging branch and then merge to production?
Right now it's just a prod.
Okay.
But I do have some of them set up where I was testing those things for more complex dependencies like Nextcloud, but overhead and scope creep. So right now it's just straight to prod.
You're my upper bound. Like if I'm at the same level as you, I'm very happy basically. So I'm fine with this. This is great.
Awesome.
Presumably a family member has to come in to give you the second set of eyes on the pull request, right?
4 eyes and all commits. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Might be 5-year-old eyes, but it's fine.
So what are you doing for observability on your Kubernetes cluster there?
Absolutely nothing. If someone shouts something's broken, or it's broken for me anyway, yeah, I've again, observability is on it. That's a day 2 problem, Aaron, so I'm not going to worry about that right now.
There's nothing like a family member shouting at you to alert you to something being wrong. So I think that's fine.
I have, to be fair, I think we talked about like home production being like media server, and I've not been brave enough to do that. I've got Jellyfin up and running. It actually performs really well, and I've got all my music on there, so there's actually some nice music player clients for Jellyfin. Haven't yet done the migration task. Then I might be talking more about observability, but until then, it's like if it breaks for me, I'll just fix it. But I did have an outage in that my one node went down, and I was like, oh my God, what's broken? I realized it had been plugged out. I plugged it back in, everything just spun up and just worked. It was like really nice.
So UPS is the next thing on your shopping list then?
Probably, yeah. I've already looked. Yeah, it's on the list.
I think that'll actually bring you up to where I'm at.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, I think we should wrap things up, but before we do, just a quick thank you to our existing PayPal supporters and patrons. I also want to say thank you to those people who sent us in feedback or questions. We've answered those by email, and it has been great to read them all, so please do keep them all coming. If you've got any questions or comments, please send them to show@hybridcloudshow.com. We'll be back in 2 weeks. Until then, I've been Aaron.
I've been Gary.
I've been Sean.
And I've been Shane.
See you later.